Hey all, new day, new verse. We continue on in Isaiah, and I just want to start it off asking the question: you ever been tired? And I'm not just talking like physical tired. We all been there. Good nap will take care of that food, yay. And I'm not just talking about emotionally drained either. When you're just so spent you don't want to deal with another person. Where you look at introverts, even if you're the most extroverted person in the world, and you're like, I like that idea. Give me the blanket, because of the taxing nature of people. I'm not even talking that kind of tired. I'm talking soul tired. I mean, so tired that your whole being can only just. Tired. 'Cause I've been there. I know what it is to be that kind of tired. I know what it is to be that kind of spent. And these words that we're going to go over today aren't just the prediction of Babylon's fall, written to them at such a time and place as that, rather for us in this moment as a reminder. Because Isaiah's Babylon, it came crashing down. A couple years after, I think it was like 100-something years after the prediction. It's in one of the earlier videos, I don't remember it off the top of my head. The point here is that Babylon is gone. You can still see the ruins today. Most of them fields stripped for archaeological finds. It's also a reminder for us today, for when we are just too tired. Chapter 47, verse 13 and 14. All the advice you receive has made you tired. Where are all your astrologers, those stargazers who make predictions each month? Let them stand up and save you from what the future holds. But they are like straw, burning in a fire. They can't save themselves from the flame. You will get no help from them at all, and their hearth is no place to sit for warmth. I want to dig into this, because if you saw the thumbnail, and I'm not trying to like, oh, look at me, I'm an expert. I'm not in any way, shape, or form. There's a reason there's a D in the channel. Ralph Wiggum, at best, kind of moment. And besides, I prefer the Jack and Jill style of all trades anyway. The ability to fill, the ability to come in and help out wherever is needed. Yeah, it may not be a master of anything, but can specialize, not specialize in anything, but can pretty much do anything that's needed. It's just the way I've always done it. And these verses here, they remind me of the season I did it in. I mean, I've seen a lot of believers get in the faces of people who are doing this path. I've seen a lot of people just ram and lay into and just butcher with words the worst way possible, and not distinguishing the two differences between the failure and the person. And the reason I call it a failure is because of the same reason that I hate middle management. I don't need to talk to an intermediary person. I need to go to the source. And yes, in today's society, it may be getting called a Karen for wanting to talk to the manager. But past that, I want to talk to the person who can actually help. Mostly, one, because I don't think the person who's just stuck on the front lines needs to listen to my pissing and moaning. Because, well, quite frankly, you have a hard enough job as it is. You don't need to listen to me get angry. And two, if all you're going to do is get yelled at and then have to tell this person anyway, well, why don't I just save you the headache? You go enjoy, get a cup of coffee, maybe have an early lunch, and I'll have a conversation with your boss so they can actually earn the pay that's more than yours, kind of thing. And even then, it's trying to have a decent conversation about getting things fixed. Whether it be a back brace not getting fixed because no one bothered to ask for medical records, so it was kind of a basic pointless waste of time that they wanted to charge for over $800 for. I'm like, why no? Or whether it be taking a moment and saying, God, I need you. Holy Spirit, I need you. Jesus, I need you. I need to speak to the source of the universe, because the universe is buggered right now. I am buggered right now. Tired, spent, sore, sick and tired of being sick and tired and needing a fucking break. That's why I pray to Jesus. Because I've lived through that season of trusting the horoscopes and looking toward the stars. And don't get me wrong, From a scientific aspect, it is really interesting to see the gravitational effect of the moon on the internal on the brain. Like, there is some major stuff going on that is way more complex than we see or know, and we simply just dismiss it. And I think that's because the Enlightenment has decided that we all know but have no interest in actually learning more. And that saddens me, because there's always more to learn. There's always more to dig into. Whether it's becoming a master in a field at it and pioneering the next steps toward what more can be done after figuring out whether should or could, because that's a very important question, or being just having a moment. Because the world is filled with TED Talk places about how to do this, how to do that, Lord, change my attitude, this driven life, or, purpose-driven life. And I'm not saying anything's bad in any way, shape, or form. I'm saying they're but a shadow of what we can be given in real relationship. I mean, Jesus says it himself. The word in here talks about the fact that we will, in the last days, I think it's Joel or Amos, then we will not need to go to schools asking, oh, who are you, God, and learning about him in 5 simple steps. That we'll actually get to interact with him personally and know him personally. That we will say, he is our God, and he will say, we are his people. Faith, choice, love. That's the thing, goes right back to the garden, right? Free will choice. Humanity. Hey, kiddos, I'm trying to teach you what any good parent is going to teach their kid come down the roads. What you shouldn't and what you should do. I need you to trust me on this one. I need to listen to me. But I give you free will. So if you choose not to, okay, the actions will have consequences. And whether it be the micro form of grounding a small child so that they learn not to run into oncoming traffic, or giving a kid the spanking on the butt if you don't teach them, don't touch a piano when a professional musician is playing it. Whether it be correcting the behavior in such a way that the child understands, because it's a relationship between parent and child. Not, oh, hey, here's the manual about when to beat them, how to beat them, and make sure that they're a nice form, uniform, miniature version of yourself. You're not making a clone. You're raising up another human being who is different from you. Even twins are different. Ask them if you don't believe me. I've interacted with enough pairs of twins that I can tell you they are dramatically different people. To the point where even identical ones look nothing alike when you truly get to know them. But we don't. We spend time asking for stargazers and astrologers, anybody who will predict it. Any person who can look at the money and go, oh, yeah, tell me where to invest. Oh, hey, tell me what I should do. Oh, hey, take all the responsibility off of my shoulders. As we throw a ton of weight on each other we're not meant to carry, and then we throw it off more so because we're never looking at the actual source. So we become a species and a culture of the blind leading the blind. It's why we are where we are today. So we've spent centuries choosing the lesser of 2 evils, instead of taking a moment and saying, what is right? At least Pilate had a moment to ask what is truth. I mean, granted, it was tongue-in-cheek, mostly sarcastic, and asked that of a politician, but at least he asked. At least he took a moment. Not a faux hand wave of the crowd, but an actual take a moment, because that's what we need to do. How is a human going to save another human unless that human is also perfectly God? We don't have the data. We're still learning. There is no manual about how to live. Hell, this is not basic instructions before leaving Earth. If it was, culture we have now. Because David, that whole Uriah the Hittite, to say nothing of, on his deathbed talking to Solomon, remember to follow what the Lord has said. And then murder my enemies, especially that asshole who called me a bunch of dirty names while I was running. Not exactly an improvement, is it? But God doesn't see those sins. We heap them on each other, but God doesn't. And that's why I love the just such interesting beauty of these verses. Because they call to so many different places. The advice you've received has made you tired. Like I asked at the very beginning of this. Tired, spent, worn out, bent and spent on religion? Jesus says, well, on the Sermon on the Mount and in many other places, come to me, all who are weary and laden, and I will give you rest. For my yoke is easy and my burdens few. And he is gentle and humble of heart. He's not going to force his way. We have the option. We have the choice. Right up until the destruction needs to be rectified, and like the days of Noah, it's dealt with. God is patient and long of suffering. He's not going to call the innocent guilty or the guilty innocent, and he hears the cries of the suffering. And we've got a culture that traffics in it, that sells snake oil to people who are hurting, whether it be physical, emotional, or spiritual. And oftentimes the people who are selling it are just as afraid, if not more so. There's a reason it's a joke at this point that people go into either comedy, either stand-up comedy or become professional therapists to deal with their own demons. It's a joke because it's born out of truth. It's reducing to humor something that is actually accurate. Most people, and especially the ones I've interacted with, because I've seen my fair few, from about 6, 7 years old on, probably, no, wait, 8 or 9, I honestly lost count at this point. I can tell you, most of them are there because they're just as lost and confused. We end up the blind leading the blind. So we don't hear each other, we don't see each other, we don't take time for each other. We don't go to the one who knows the future because we're so angsty about the present. How will I do this? How will I work out what I'm supposed to do? How's it going to play? I don't know what I'm doing. None of us do. Anyone who tells you that they know what they're doing is either lying or selling something. Only God knows. Only God knows. We're linear. How could we possibly know? Unless we are actively manipulating the circumstances to our favor, at which point, are we knowing the future or are we forcing it? See Bertie Madoff. See Abraham with Ishmael. See, pick a time in the Bible. Pick a time in history. It's what we do, and that's the core that needs to be fixed. I'm not laying into anybody. If I were, I'd be easily convictable for having gone down all of those same paths. What I instead want to offer is this: if you are somebody on one of those paths, seek God. 1, it beats the hell out of taking all the time between here and there figuring out that the middle management ain't worth it. 2, God doesn't big on middle management either. He didn't send an angel. He didn't send a cherubim. He didn't send a seraphim. He didn't send a giant-ass dragon that bows at his will. He sent his son, who is perfectly God and perfectly man. He came to set it right. That's the invitation. So are you tired of guessing at it? Are you tired of looking at the stars and wondering, is this the big one? Am I going to make it? Is there even a point? If you're tired of rolling the dice, hoping that RN Jesus isn't going to beat your ass wholesale at discount prices. If you're tired of waiting for the other shoe to drop because, hey, that's just how life is. There's a moment of happy and then an ass beating to the point where there is no point in hoping. If you're tired of that vicious cycle, then turn to Jesus. Because the wind and the waves, they'll come. For everyone. Due time, due season, see Ecclesiastes. There is a time to die. There's also time to be born. And we can be born again. From this world, from the way of doing it, from those tired places. Simply by turning to him and saying yes. Yes, be my Lord. Yes, be my Savior. Yes, be my healer. Yes, be my King. And then recognize what that means and take your hand off the damn wheel. He's the shepherd. We're the sheep. And as long as we keep trying to take his job, as long as we keep trying to sit on his throne, As long as we keep trying to pronounce ourselves as Lord, Master, God, and King, emperors and empresses of the kingdoms we've been given. Whether it be the Lord of our household that everybody submits to our will, or being a ruler and leader of the free world, and forgetting your job is to steward first. The God of all creation took on the role of a slave, the lowest slave, and washed his disciples' feet. And we don't do the same. I would imagine if the channel had more reach, my thumbnail would probably piss off a lot of people. And many would never even bother listening to this entire video, pointing out that those things are smoke and mirrors. They're distractions. They're watch what the one hand is doing while the other is actively doing it. Nothing different than Egyptian magic. God is real. And if you want reality, if you're tired of the fake, if this world where suffering is currency and we justify our actions by little pieces of paper with dead people on them, or possibly alive people who are potentially dead inside, really 6 of one, half knows the other. If we want to see this world change, and change for the better, then people are what's going to have to matter most. People are what's going to have to come first. Not money, not prestige, not power, not title. People. And if we won't do that, then what's the point of the species? Not just from a love God, love others standpoint that Jesus points out clearly as being the golden rule, something that most of the world acknowledges but won't even bother with. But I mean in that we are one species. It is a closed system environment. Yet, we forget we're siblings. We'll spit on brother or sister because they're a different shade. We'll attack cousin, nephew, aunt, sister, just because they may not look the same. Jesus says himself, "Who are my brothers and sisters? Who is my mother? The one who does the will of my Father." Loving God and loving others. And if we want to take 5 minutes to see past the superficial things and look to the heart, why would we expect God to do the same for us? We're judged with the ladle we measure out. So will we see? Will we hear? Will we love? Or will we hate? It's the problem with the Pharisees and the Sadducees, is that they saw and knew the active miracles of God going on in their midst. But because it didn't go their way, it wasn't their shape, it wasn't their form, it wasn't their expectation, it didn't matter. They got lost all the same. God gives us free will. I implore you now, use that free will. Use the beautiful, wonderful, and incredible mind that God has given you. And seek Him. Love others. Use your uniqueness, your muchness that God has given you. And make this a world a little brighter. Whether you're painting with a turkey baster, with a paintbrush, with pencil, with a eraser, or even the games we stream. Use what God gave you and bless others. So that was the gift of Abraham in those moments where we see him shine the most. Oh, hey, you guys must be tired. I mean, you've been traveling forever. Your feet are sore. It's hot out here. Come on in. Let me get you something to drink. Let me get you some food. Come on in and recline till it gets a little cooler. Tell me how your journey was. Let me call you friend. Same idea of Jesus did Judas in the garden. Hello, friend. That's how he greets us. That's how we ought to greet each other. Out of love, mercy, understanding, and most of all, wisdom. so that we know where and when we are supposed to be. It's like the verses said, stargazers, astrologers, people predicting the future, like straw in the fire. There will be no warmth had at a hearth filled with fear. A sad choice to make when the invitation is a party, the marriage of bride and groom, the celebration of all of creation made new, where he wipes every tear, sets every wrong right, and heals us. I know it to be true because I've seen it. I've experienced it to be fact because I've seen and tested the falsehoods. And I can promise you, your journey will be very much the same if you take it. If you go down the primrose path of nothingness, you will end up right back here, holding the same kind of misery in your hand and a whole lot more baggage and more hurt. And what could have taken but a moment with the Lord take years of agony working through and being abused simply because we were too stubborn. Because, like Nebi before us, we were more interested in what we had wrought than what God has gotten us through. Choice is ours, it's never changed. Free will is a beautiful thing. It's how we use it that makes all the difference. Will you love? Or will we wither? The choice is yours, as it's always been. May his favor be upon you. Know that you're loved and never give up hope. He is our hope, our source, our strength, our refuge, our life.